Hello, everyone. Hello, Louise.
Hi, Will. Hi, everyone. It's so
Uh,
much fun to see people coming in. We see it on the chat and saying hi from Tennessee and hi from Alaska and hi from Quebec.
Hi from New York City. Yes, well, first of all, welcome to everybody, and thank you for joining us in this Barnes and Noble event, where I'll be in conversation with Louise. I'll ask her some questions, and then I will ask her many of the wonderful questions you all have sent in, or as many as we can fit in the time allowed. I'm Will Schwalbe. I'm a memoirist, the author of the End of Your Life Book Club, Books for Living, and most recently, We Should Not Be Friends. And tonight, it's just such a huge pleasure to interview one of my dearest friends and favorite novelists. And how cool is that? That one of my favorite novelists is one of my dearest friends, and vice versa. I am one lucky dude. We'll be talking about her brilliant new novel, The Black Wolf, on sale officially tomorrow, October 28th. And before I introduce Louise with her proper introduction, I just have to say, Louise, as you know, consider you one of the great novelists of our time. I feel like the 20 Gamash novels make up a kind of amazing super novel with few parallels in modern literature. These are books that grapple with some of the major moral, historical, and social issues of our time, and they bring us deeper and deeper into the minds and lives of a remarkable group of characters and a place that we have all grown to love. And in The Black Wolf, you have really outdone yourself. So I've read it already, and you all are in just such a treat. Now, as for Louise, Louise is a former CBC radio journalist, is the #1 New York Times, USA Today, and Globe and Mail best-selling author of the Chief Inspector Armand Gamache novels. She's been awarded the CWA Dagger, Nero, McCavity, and Barry Awards, as well as two each of the Arthur Ellis and Dillis Awards. In addition, she's won the Agatha Award 8 times and was a finalist for the Edgar Award for Best Novel. In 2017, she received the Order of Canada for her contributions to Canadian culture, and she lives in a small village south of Montreal. Welcome, Louise.
Oh, Will, thank you. And it's such a pleasure to be here with Barnes and Noble, with all the people across the United States, and with you, as you said, it's what a gift. I really thought when Still Life, which came out actually 20 years ago, so this is the anniversary, that Still Life being the first book, when it came out, that the really the great gift was holding my own novel with my name on it or seeing it in the bookcase. That turns out after 20 years, I mean, that is a great gift. But really, the most important thing are the people that I've met that I never would have met, like Will Schwalbe, like so many booksellers across the United States, the independent booksellers, the wonderful people at Barnes and Noble, the readers, the people who've become close friends because one day, no time soon, I hope this will end. It all, it just naturally does. The writing stops. I don't have any plans. But what will carry on, I hope, and I know will be the friendships.
Such a beautiful thought and such a lovely way to begin this evening. I want to dive right in and ask you if you can walk us through the setup for the Black Wolf and the situation that Gamache and his team now face.
Well, this was very unusual for me. You talked about, and that was so beautiful what you talked about with the 20 books, and that they form essentially, and I do think of them as being in one big book with 20 chapters, which is why I do advise people if they say, where should I start? It's a terrible thing to tell someone. You got to start at the beginning. It sounds like a pyramid scheme at this point. They've got 20 books, these poor people. Get them out of the library, buy them used, borrow them from someone. But you wouldn't start a novel that you're reading on chapter 15. you'd start it, of course, at the beginning and read it all the way through. So yeah, so this was unusual because it really is two halves of a whole. Actually, really one book split into two. The Gray Wolf came out last year. The Black Wolf is coming out tomorrow. Um, the Gray Wolf follows Gamash and the team through a terrible plot that they kind of stumble upon. And the book ends with the character saying, "We have a problem." So it turns out that Armand, right at the end, realizes that while he has solved one plot, it is possible that he has made a mistake. And in fact, that is a kind of a stalking horse, that it's not the real one, that the real one was hiding behind it and is even worse. And he's not sure what it is, but he has this growing anxiety that he has missed something. And so that's where the Black Wolf starts, with them saying, "We have a problem." And then they're trying to figure out obviously what the problem is, and then go from there.
Mm.
So
And
I don't want, it's very
no,
short.
no, that's perfect.
Okay.
I love that the
I want
last
to tell everybody
spot.
more. I want to
No,
tell you
no.
more about it.
But do tell us about the meaning of the titles and the story that birthed that, the Gray Wolf and the Black Wolf.
It's so much fun at this point because I have all of this material in the past, in past books, to draw from, both characters that I can bring forward, but also themes and stories that perhaps haven't been completely resolved. And in this case, and I think some of the people listening probably know where it comes from, in The Beautiful Mystery, which is set in a remote monastery, the abbot is telling Armand at the very end of that book the story about this First Nations, the Aboriginal chief, who is talking to his grandson, and he says to his grandson, "I have two wolves that are fighting inside me. And the gray wolf wants me to be reasonable and kind and forgiving and compassionate. And the black wolf wants me to be vengeful and brutal and attack my enemies and not forgive anything." And this terrifies the grandson, this image of the two ripping his grandfather apart. And he runs away, and then the next day he comes back and says to his grandfather, "Well, which of the wolves is going to win?" And the grandfather answers, "It's the one that we feed."
Mhm.
And so we have the gray wolf, and now, unfortunately, Armand is facing the black wolf.
The Black Wolf. Uh, I, we're going to come back to your magpie mind and the way you collect things, which I love and admire, and also the way you weave in real people, real places, real events from history. In The Black Wolf, you mention a man with the most marvelous name, Snowflake Bentley. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about Snowflake Bentley.
Snowflake Bentley. I had actually mentioned him in an earlier book, a couple of books ago, and I can't remember what it was, but it was one certainly set. I think it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. A couple of books ago, and then I mentioned him again in this book. He existed. He lived in Vermont back at the turn of the 19th century, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, just when photography was coming in. And he lived essentially in the backwoods of Vermont, not highly educated, but he became fascinated with photography. And his family, his parents gave him one of the first cameras. And because he lived in Vermont, where not far from where I live, and we have a lot of snow, somehow he also became fascinated with snowflakes. And his whole goal was to photograph a single snowflake. Now, it's not as easy as you think, because just to separate one snowflake from all of the others and then capture it before it disappears I don't know that I could do it. I have no idea how he did it, but he did. And what he was the first person on Earth to discover that every snowflake is different. Nobody knew that until he was able to photograph it and prove it. And even when he did, and he sent in the proof to all these scientific associations, no one believed him. Everyone just dismissed him as a kook, a backwoods kook. And it was decades later that they realized that it's quite true. There is a Snowflake Bentley museum now near his home in Vermont, and I actually found two of his original oh, what are they called? Daguerreotypes, or the photograph of two of his snowflakes. That they're treasures of mine. But I love that. I love doing exactly that, of finding these obscure facts and events and people who should not be obscure,
Yeah.
and sort of dragging them forward because for me they're discoveries. This is the best job ever. Will's a brilliant writer. Isn't it the best job
It
ever
is the
that
best job. It is the best job ever.
we get to when I write, I have a stack of cookbooks, I have a stack of poetry books, I have all sorts of these nonfiction reference books, and I get to explore.
And how do you make sure that things that pop into your mind don't drift away? What's your system?
Oh, that can happen. That can happen in the middle of a sentence, as I'm sure you will find out. Rebecca from Tallahassee find out soon. Um, I have a notebook, which I don't have. I should have brought it with me to show you. And I'm very specific about the notebooks that I want and have. They're ring binders, and they have separations, 5 separations, not three, not six, five. I know it's maybe a slightly anal. Uh, and tabs. And so I write on them quotes, characters, plot.
Gosh.
Um, uh, and um, and as I'm considering a book, which is generally starts as I'm about halfway through the previous book because they are really intertwined. I start seriously considering what the next book is going to be about. I jot things down, and sometimes it's a word, sometimes it's a couplet from a poem, sometimes it's like Snowflake Bentley. You know, I wrote Snowflake Bentley, and I may have written that down 6 years ago. And I bring things forward from each notebook that I haven't used, and eventually the time will come. The um, was it in a world of curiosities? I think it was in the world of curiosities where I talk about the massacre at the École Polytechnique, and I knew years before that this was something I wanted to talk about because it was such a horrific event and not really one well known outside of Canada. Um, but the time had to be right, so it just kept moving forward and forward, and then eventually I knew that I think I was a good enough writer, that Armand was in such a place that the characters were there that they could deal with that issue.
Because I remember encountering it in the book and just thinking, could this be something I never heard of? How could that? And Googling it and being both shocked and horrified, but so grateful to you for bringing that to me. Now,
Thank
as
you.
far as real places,
Mm.
there is an extraordinary place mentioned in this novel, and I'd love for you to talk about it a little bit. The Haskell Free Library and Opera House.
Which it got a bit of a boost from the current American administration, actually. The Haskell, it is such an oddity and such a treasure. It, I learned about it many years. It must have been 40 years ago when I was working for CBC radio in Quebec City. I did a remote broadcast from there. It is exactly that, a free library and opera house in the middle of these two small towns. One is in Quebec and one is in Vermont. And the Haskell Free Library and Opera House is built right on the border, not by mistake. This was intentional. They built it right on the border. It's a beautiful building, and the border line goes all the way. I mean, I say dot dot dot. It's actually a straight line that bisects it, goes right through the library, goes right through the opera house, and out the other side. And it was built as a symbol of our friendship, of the fact that, like this bricks and mortar, our friendship cannot be divided. And it is still true. Our friendship will not be divided.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of one of the elephants in the room, so to speak, is the current state of affairs between the United States and Canada. And in ways that I will not mention because it's part of the thought, uh, it definitely features in these two novels. Um, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to say something about that if you wanted to.
Well, I want to go back for a moment to the Haskell just to say that, and completely coincidental, because the book was written before the latest election results and Mr. Trump getting in again. But two of the pivotal scenes in The Black Wolf take place in the Haskell Free Library and Opera House, which is why we're talking about it. But also, it hit the headlines, this library, because the American administration decided to close the Canadian access to the library. And so they closed the door and said Canadians can no longer, because it meant going in the American, crossing the border and walking, and it's like 3 feet into the United States, but it's still in the United States in order to get in the main door. And they said Canadians are no longer allowed to do that. And Kristi Noem went there and she stood on the borderline on the American side and put her foot across and said, United States, 51st state. United States, 51st state. And we went apoplectic. We were incandescent at that, not simply because of the insult and the pettiness of it, um, but 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 because they're attacking a library.
Mm.
Library.
Yeah.
But I also want to make the distinction really, really clear between the American people and the American administration, which clearly we are struggling with the administration and some of the choices that it's been made, but we do not struggle with the American people. I do not struggle even with the people who voted in a way that I would never vote. Well, I do struggle a little bit, but but what I do know in my heart is that if I was in trouble and I went and knocked on a door, there's no way that person is going to say, well, before I help you, who did you vote for? They wouldn't. They would help me. We're there for each other. And that is actually what the Haskell Opera House is all about. We're there for each other. The rest is politics. And yet it matters at a certain level, but really in our hearts, we are the same. We all want the same thing.
And how beautiful that the symbol is this Palace to Culture Library and Opera House. There's something I heard about an event that's going to take place?
Oh, he's so coy. But I do want to just finish that and then I'll talk
Yeah.
about the event. The Canadian response to them forbidding Canadians from entering our own library and opera house because we share it, and the only issue was the door, was to open another door. They just said, all right, we'll just put a door through the Canadian side. So they knocked a hole through the wall. It was such an elegant solution to a really very foolish decision. Um, but yes, at the end of this tour, next weekend, actually, we're going to hold, and clearly intentionally, the last two events at the Haskell Opera House. And they're going to be hosted by Phoenix Books in Vermont and Brome Lake Books in Quebec. And it's split right down the middle, 50-50, and we'll all be together in the same room.
I love that. I love that. Um, and I'm going to switch a little to this idea of reappearances. And one of the things that I love and treasure is that sometimes a character from way in the past or recent past in one of your novels all of a sudden pops up again. And uh, the Black Wolf has a character, Agent Nickel, I believe. Uh,
Right.
and can you just talk a little bit about her character and the inspiration of her name, and just tell me a little about how you describe Agent Nickel?
Agent Nickel made her first appearance in Still Life 20 years ago. And she was just going to be a secondary character, if that. But then she sort of took on a life of her own, and she became more fully formed and but not very likable. She was someone who was really very conflicted with herself. She wanted Gamash's approval, but because she wanted it so badly, she was vulnerable, and she ended up acting out and lashing out, and she's quite ambivalent. It's difficult to tell really whose side she actually is on. And she appeared off and on through the series and then hasn't really appeared for a number of books. And then there just seemed that this opportunity to bring her back. I named her when I was obviously writing Still Life, where she first appeared, Nickel, because I recognized some of that vulnerability, the wounds that she carries, the need for approval that is so keen within her, but also what a tyranny it is. Because as in my younger days, when I was her age in the early 20s, that's how I went through life, as a kind of an open wound.
Mhm.
So my last name is Penny, so I named her Nickel. Not spelt the way Nickel normally is, but it would make Nickel. Just as a kind of just yeah, you think you're so smart. Yeah,
So
remember
great.
Agent Nickel.
I remember Penny and Nickel.
Penny and Nickel.
Um, it sounds like a comedy, but sort of could go in the
Yeah,
spelled or
vaudeville.
Penny and Nickel. So I have just two more questions of mine before I segue into all the wonderful ones that came from your readers who are on this Zoom. Um, One is a subject near and dear to my heart, writer's block.
Oh, I thought you
Do
were
you
going to say
have
Will.
it? Do you never have it? How do you deal with it? Discuss.
Is it fair to be blocked at this very moment?
Yes.
Blood coming out my nose. Well, I suffered from writer's block before I even started writing. I quit work as a journalist. Writing had always been a dream of mine. My dear husband said, if you want to write now, sort of joke's over, now's the time, I'll support you. So I quit. I had The problem, Will, was that I had no more excuses. For 45 years, instead of writing, I had simply created excuses. I was too stressed. I had to get up at 6 a.m. I had this big job. I had blah, 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 blah. Um, and now I had no more excuses. And I just stared at, in French, it's called a page blanche, which is the white page. I just stared at the white page for 5 years. 5 years. Got to the stage where Michael stopped asking, how's the book going? Oh dear. Um, and then a few things happened to break it. One was that we moved out of Montreal into a small village, as you said, south of Montreal. Some people might recognize it. When my publishers come, it's always a little embarrassing because it becomes immediately clear I have no imagination. I simply write what I see every day. Um, I also fell in with a group of very creative women who did different things. Some were writers, but most were painters or dancers or poets. Um, and they had the courage I didn't, and that was to just write, just create and not worry about the judgment of others. And that was a huge inspiration. And then I realized that, and then this is a bit of advice I give to emerging writers. Even if they don't ask for advice, I give it to them for free. I just suggest just write a book you would read, and don't worry about what your mother's going to think, or your professor, or your husband or wife, or anything. Just write a book you would read, because at the end of the day, it may or may not be published, but you have to be proud of it. Don't write for the market. Don't just write for yourself. And the key for me was realizing I'm no different than anyone else, beyond perhaps, not perhaps, absolutely being more fortunate, but I am no different. My desires, my tastes are exactly the same. Um, so yeah, I don't suffer writer's block anymore. I do reach stages somewhere in the middle of a book. They call it the muddle in the middle for a reason, where I sort of literally lose the plot. And I think that's often the difference, Will, between someone who really is going to have a career as a writer and a bit of a dilettante. And that is someone who just keeps persevering. You have to persevere. And different people get out of it different ways. Some people stop and wait for the inspiration, and that's fine for them. But you have to just keep writing, keep working at it. And don't worry. I went to a therapist at one stage and she said something that changed my life. She said, because I was worried about writer's block with the second book. And and she said the wrong person is writing the book. Your critic is writing the book. You
Mm,
have to thank the critic, bless the critic, show the critic the door for the first draft, and just write with abandon, with joy, with courage, with courage. Put it all down, take risks. And if you write 10 pages on a pencil about a pen, it's not going to end up in the final draft. That's what editing is for. That's what second and third and fourth, that's what the critic is for.
mm.
First draft is just writing with joy and awareness of how lucky we are that we get to do it. So that and the ability to persevere and discipline has gotten me through. I dare you to ask another question.
That's that segues right into some of the wonderful questions, including very important one that let me see if I can come up with. This is Laura Underheil asked this. That the role that nourishment plays while you're actually writing, and she wanted to know what is your favorite brand of gummy bear? And I believe it's gummy bear, not gummy bear, even though I always said gummy bear, but people tell me
What?
it's German and it's gummy bear. So
No, that
yes,
can't be right. Gummy bear? Gummy?
I
That
think
doesn't
it's
sound
gummy bear,
right. Gummy, who told you that?
a German, proudly and a little angrily. Um,
A little angry. Oh, that's
um,
funny. Gummy bear, gummy bear. I'm going to stick with gummy. I'm sorry. I have
okay, you can stick with
my
gummy.
favorite. I don't know. There are some gummy bears that are kind of hard that I don't like. I like the softer
Squishy.
ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I am quickly turning into an edible oil product. I never decompose.
Can you just let us know before I turn to some of the other questions? Are there other sort of ritualistic snacks that have to be by your side as you're writing?
Oh, I sort of go through different seasons. I love chocolate chip cookies, eclairs. I now, as you might know, I have actually opened a cafe attached to Brome Lake Books. I don't own Brome Lake Books. Danny and Lucy do, but I own the building because I wanted to make sure that they were safe. So when the building came up, and again, I could not have done this 15 years ago. The reason I could afford to buy the building is because of the people who are listening, because of people like Laura and others who are supporting the books. So I was able to buy the building, and then I thought, well, it'd be nice to open up Olivier and Gabrie's Bistro. I didn't quite go that far, but it's a cafe, wonderful baristas. Brian is a fabulous manager. Um, but I have so much fun because I'll say things like, I think we should have eclairs. And the next thing you know, they have eclairs. I'm thinking, oh, such power. Amazing. Um, so every now and then I'll go to the cafe quite often just to say hi, but I'll get an eclair and bring it home, and that's my treat.
Oh, that's marvelous. This is a question also that many people had, which is and I'll ask it the way Jacqueline Stewart asked it. Did you have the arc of Gamash's life and career mapped out, or are you living it with him?
That's such a great way of putting it too. I'm living it with him. Um, absolutely have not, um, unlike J.K. Rowling, I haven't foreseen all of the things that are going to happen to him. Like I can't see the things that are going to happen to me. So I want it to be organic and not feel manipulated or sort of shoved in. And that I find I 20 years, I still find him endlessly fascinating. And Ren Marie and all of the other characters, and to see them evolve and grow and be affected by things that have happened to them. Um, but no, no, I don't actually know what's going to happen next.
You. And that relates to Joanne Brennan asked this question, and I love the way she put it. She said, all of your characters have distinct personalities and cadences to how they think and communicate. When you're writing, what method or process do you go through to get into the mindset of each to understand how they're going to react to every situation you've created for them?
Oh, that's again a great question because the books, while absolutely proudly and clearly crime novels, are also really about being human, about belonging. It's about our relationships, our yearning to belong and connect, human connections, and that presupposes having fully formed humans in the books. And at this stage now, with 20 books in, and actually very early on, I could hear them. So I do hear them. And it's not like they're dictating the book, because that would be convenient, actually. That's really great. They're too lazy for that. They're hanging around a bistro, for God's sake. But I know their emotional responses to things. And that's also sometimes, that's very fun to throw curves in and to see how they are going to react and respond to different events in their lives. But yes, they do have because you can't have what I would love to do, and I do sometimes, is have them when they're in a group talk without saying said Ruth, said Gabri, said Olivier, because it should be obvious
Yeah.
who is speaking if you've got it right. Sometimes you don't want to really take that chance because you want to make sure that people aren't getting confused. But if I've done it right, it should be fairly obvious.
Mm. It's such a wonderful way. The idea of when the people that you know best speak, of course you know who they are
Right.
when they're talking. Um, Alyssa Katrufis wanted to know what your favorite parts to write was about the Three Pines series, the character relationships, the scenery. She says, I feel like this place is real and I can imagine it so vividly in my head reading, or the actual mystery part of the story.
Oh boy, that because they're all so different, aren't they? Um, and all are necessary and all need to be compelling in the book. And in order for it to be compelling, I think to the reader, it needs to be interesting to me as well. Um, one of the things I love doing is describing, and I'm actually just writing the next book now, and I have a character who's never been to Three Pines, but who manages to find it, um, cresting the hill and stopping and looking at the landscape, the vista to the Green Mountains of Vermont, but then down below is this. The GPS says they're in the middle of nowhere, and in fact, there is this village. And describing the village and finding it again, like T.S. Eliot said, for the first time. So it's that's always gives me shivers, always gives me just such joy to describe the village.
One of your readers who is with us today wanted to know, and this was from Jennifer Holmes, and your answer reminded me of this. Um, she said, I often save your books to read in the season during which the story takes place. Do you have a favorite Canadian season to write about?
Oh, I once had an email. There are probably a number of people who have written to say the same thing, but I only clued into this one. A fellow said, "Why do you always write about winter?" And I'm thinking, I don't always write about winter. Hmm. And I thought a little bit about that. My God, I think he's right. Because winter is so fun to write about. Snowflake Bentley.
Thank goodness.
Everything is so extreme.
Yeah.
Um, so that now I've become a lot more aware of of what I'm writing, the season I'm writing about. But each season is interesting and different. Excuse me. Um, I do describe November in one book as nobody's favorite month, and
Oh, poor
which
November.
poor November. It has Thanksgiving, your Thanksgiving in it.
Yeah,
Um,
nobody's
but yeah,
movie.
each season is interesting. But certainly winter is, I mean, there's no way around it. It's a fabulous season to write about also because I know that there are many people who live in warmth and who never get to experience what we experience in Quebec.
Yeah. I love the way you write about winter. It's and I can't stand the cold. So your winter is as close as I like to get to winter. Uh Catherine Boswell has a question, which is, are the Gamashes dogs modeled on real dogs you have known?
No one has ever asked me that. Henri is modeled on my first editor at Minotaur Books, St. Martin's Press, Ben Severe. Um, and he did still life and we got to know each other. There's kind of you kind of bond with the first, the first editor, and it's my first book, and I was like hanging off a cliff and he's got my hand. He got a puppy named Henry,
Mm.
a golden retriever, not a golden retriever, a German Shepherd. And so I think it may have been an effort on my part to suck up to Ben Severe that would be in carrot keeping.
Uh-huh.
But so I decided to name Armand's dog Henri, which he adopts, I think, in the second book after one of the characters passes away and the dog is left orphaned. So they take him in. Fred was the dog that my great friend and assistant Lise had. A bit of a mongrel, like Fred is in the book. He's since passed away, but Fred was Fred.
Red was red.
So yeah, that's where they come from.
Oh. And several people wanted to know how your dogs are.
Oh, I wish they were here to show you, but they can be a little disruptive. So friends are looking after them while we're chatting. Oh yeah, Charlie and Muggins. Muggins, they're so different. They're both golden retrievers. We had yesterday on Saturday, we had the pre-launch party, and as I've actually done a couple of times in the past, we always make it a fundraiser for some organization. Last year it was for the Old Brewery Mission, which does fabulous work in for the homeless in downtown Montreal, and this year we chose Golden Rescue, and Charlie comes from Golden Rescue, and she's just she's got her quirks. She doesn't get along all that well with other dogs, but she loves people. I sometimes take her. There's a dementia group that we have in the cafe every Monday, and I'll take her in there because she'll go around. She seems to be able to tell who are the volunteers and who are the clients, and she will just stick with the clients. And they can pat her, and she'll roll over, and she's just lovely. Was a given that from day one that she was going to be the sweetest dog ever. Not bright, it must be. No, no, but
Oh,
everything like Henri. I described that's how I know that about Henri. Everything important she keeps in her heart. She doesn't need a
oh,
lot up there. Everything is
oh,
in her heart.
yeah. One of my hobbies now, I started looking into golden retrievers on Instagram, and now I get an endless supply of the most adorable Instagram Reels. Uh, this is a very, I thought, beautiful question from Cheryl Pavella. In your books, courage often looks like choosing compassion even when it's hard. Do you
Mm.
see kindness as a kind of justice?
Oh, oh, I think kindness is often, yeah, yes, I do. That's a really interesting question. Yes, I do. Um, because I think, well, I know you and I've talked about this in our lives that, and I suspect most of the people listening know that to choose kindness over cynicism, over the cutting remark, the sarcastic remark, is a lot harder. It's a lot harder to be kind than it is to be cruel. It takes a lot of courage. We live in a world where nastiness is often rewarded and kindness is seen as weakness. And that is simply wrong. And which is why I love writing about Armand because he is a kind person, a compassionate person, and that makes him a very brave person.
Yeah. I also love that you make the distinction, or at least your characters do, between kindness and niceness. That
Yes.
Ruth is a kind person, but not always a very nice person.
Yeah, no, no, exactly. Well, and she's not always kind.
She's not always kind, but she's capable of
No,
it,
no,
right?
that's true. That's true. But also, and actually, I was just writing about that today. How nice has become. I have Ren Marie musing on the fact that nice has become a pejorative. And
Mm.
how did that happen? How did
Mm.
that happen? What does that say about us? That when I say someone is nice, people go, "Oh, I don't want to sit next to them at a dinner party." I would rather be with someone who is nice and maybe a little bit predictable than someone who is like cutting and cruel and clever. I'm done with that. I'm tired of that.
Yeah. Back to, you mentioned the enormous kindness of Gamache.
Mm.
Uh, and several people wanted to ask if Gamache was based on someone, and if so, whom?
Yes. Well, I know you know about this, Will, but
I do.
I suspect a lot of the people listening do too, that yeah, based on my husband, Michael. Um, and he knew it at the time, which is good that he knew it. I did try to tell him that he was Ruth, but he would have none of that. But yeah, because Armand, like Michael, knows what a gift life is. Michael was the head of hematology at the Montreal Children's Hospital, which was he's the doctor you never, ever, ever want to have to meet because he dealt with children who were desperately ill with cancer. Um, and he would, at Christmas, we used to go on Christmas Day, and he would, because he looked like Santa Claus, to be fair. He would go, we'd go in and he'd dress up as Santa, and I'd be Mrs. Claus, and because yeah, with the children who couldn't leave. I remember being at my first Christmas with him. We were at a party at the Montreal Children's, and all the children were playing in the center, and the parents were around, and people were having eggnog and their presents given out. And I was looking across, chatting with some of the parents, and looking across, and I could see Michael was standing there watching the kids, and then just very slowly he turned around so that he was like he was like facing the wall, staring at the wall. His nose must have been touching it. And so I went around and I put my hand on his back and I said, Michael, what's are you okay? And he was crying and he said that I know which children will see another Christmas. And I thought, oh, if I didn't love him already,
Yeah.
I just wanted to take him in my arms.
Oh.
But because he sat beside these children and he had to talk to parents about things that no parent should ever have to hear. But still, he came home every day the happiest man I've ever met. Not because any of this gave him pleasure, but it's because he knew what a betrayal of those young lives who don't get to live, what a betrayal it would be if those of us who do get to have gray hair don't live life with compassion, with empathy, with courage, with joy. And he lived his life like that, as does Armand. Armand is perfectly aware of how cruel the world is, but he is a kind person and he is a loving person because he also knows what a gift life is.
Mhm. That is so such a powerful message for us to carry forward. I'm going to ask two more questions before, unfortunately, we're gonna have to uh, wrap it up. And this relates. This is from, and excuse me if I'm not saying this name correctly, Kim Urbanchik. Uh, and she says, for me, Gamash sometimes seems just as real as the real people I see every day. As the author who brings him to life, that feeling must be amplified. Have you ever sort of forgotten he isn't real and thought to yourself, let me give Armand a call real quick? Talk to him randomly throughout the day.
Oh, I love that. I love it. I love that people feel as close to my characters as I do, and I don't even think of them as characters. The wonderful people at my publishers, the American publishers, St. Martin's Press and Minotaur Books, have started. We just created a new series called the People of Three Pines, in which we look at, or they look at, with my help, but it's not called the characters of Three Pines, it's called the people of Three Pines because they are people. And that was important to me, is that each of these people not be caricatures, that they are relatable and understandable. And yeah, Armand, I mean, to be fair, I've never thought I need to tell Armand such and such. But I do think of them a lot. I don't think a day has gone by in 20 years when I haven't thought of Armand. And that's also to go back to the question before. Michael has since passed away. He died of, he had dementia, which is why I'm involved in dementia now. Um, but I can't remember what I was going to say.
About
Uh, I
talking
know.
to him. Yes.
No, I know. No, yes, exactly. That even though he's not here, and because Armand is based on and inspired by him, and I thought after Michael died that I wouldn't be able to write him anymore because it would just be heartbreaking and too sad. And in fact, what it's done is the opposite. So now Michael is immortal, and I get to visit him every day when I write.
Oh, so great.
It is the best job ever. It
It
is
is
the
the best job ever. And speaking of the job, several people wanted to know if there are other writers that you're reading at the moment. Is there anybody that you wanted to mention?
oh, Lise Doucette. Do you know Lise Doucette?
I don't.
Lise Doucette she's a treasure. She is the BBC's chief international correspondent. So if you watch the BBC News, you will see her, and she is intrepid. She also happens to be Canadian, but she's a remarkable journalist, and she's just come out with a fabulous book called The Finest Hotel in Kabul. And
Ooh.
it is a memoir of a hotel. And it follows this hotel from the time it was built, and therefore you're following Kabul and Afghanistan um, to the present time, but not through the eyes of the presidents and the terrorists and the others who have stayed there, the multimillionaires. It's through the eyes of the chambermaid, through the eyes of the gardener, through the eyes of the cook, through the eyes who actually of the people who live on the ground in Kabul. And you get. I started reading the book with Afghanistan in my head, in my mind, and by the end of it, it was in my heart. And now when I read about anything to do with Afghanistan, I think of Lee's and the Finest Hotel.
Gosh,
Yeah, I'm reading Anne Cleeves, big fan of hers.
she's fabulous.
She's great. Yeah, and I do want to. You were kind enough to shout out um, how much you liked The Black Wolf, and because Will is a remarkable editor, publisher, and writer, and I am such a fan of yours. And your book, which was the first one that kind of broke out, was the End of Your Life book club, which is just sensational, and then Books for Living, which is really a series. And you do the same thing as Lise was doing, and that is that it's a series of discussions of various books that have touched you, But in doing that, we also get to know you. We get to know what's happening in your life and the background. It's like a memoir through storytelling. And then we should not be friends, which is a
Thank
beautiful look at two men, you and your great friend who were just poles apart, but ended up. And this is a lesson for all of us right now, people who should not be friends, but manage to bridge that gulf.
Thank you. Thank you, Louise. And thank you for this conversation. Thank you for giving us Gamash and the other characters, these extraordinary novels. Um, Thank you for you just being you. Uh,
Oh, thank
I
you.
think I'm going to let you have the last word, but I think that brings us to the end of the discussion. I want to thank everybody so much for joining us this evening and celebrating Louise's new novel, The Black Wolf. For those who bought a ticket that included The Black Wolf with the signed bookplate or The Black Wolf unsigned, please know that the book will be delivered in 8 to 10 business days. In addition, copies of The Black Wolf are available 24/7 on barnesandnoble.com and at your local B&N store. Thank you so much for joining us. And Louise, the last word.
Oh, I want to thank you, Will. I want to thank Barnes and Noble. I want to thank my amazing publishers who understood why I'm not actually going to the United States for this particular tour, and to all the readers who have supported that decision. And it was a very difficult decision to make, and I'm endlessly grateful for that support.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.